I've heard that I'm not the only elderly person who has a debilitating illness like Parkinson's, living alone, deaf, poor, who lives a dreary life. I don't know, how dreary your life is, but it must be something else if you would come and look at one of my videos. I remember being kidnapped and tortured as a child. The Novos lockup administration of mental health in Seattle is covering for what you can now see out in the open. They're covering for mass murder committed by the Israelis. And it's apparently as easy for them to do when it's out in the open this way with Gaza as it ever was when they claimed that it didn't happen. One thing about Gaza is that no one will ever claim it didn't happen. No one serious will make an attempt to claim that it didn't happen. But I have a name for the people who are the most forthright defenders of Gaza, some of whom are doing a very good job. I call them sandbaggers. One of the reasons Seattle got away with what they did to me is the simple fact that it was inconvenient for people advocating for Russia, for example, the way George Galloway does, which makes sense if you don't know about what happened with the Texas school book. The way they need the convenience of never admitting there was the Texas school book, because it would be very complicated if they then said, we're defending the people who are destroying Gaza in a prior extermination program. Can you imagine Abby Martin, Owen Jones, George Galloway, Sabi Sabs, Nora and Ali, Norm Finkelstein, owning up to Gail Burston and having to explain why Noam Chomsky was silent? Is he going to get away with saying because of Andrea Swimmer? A girl with 1,000 times my experience and a year on me, who pushed herself on me, who I tried to help because she said the word sex. That's their magic word. She said sex. Presto. It's really that tiny of mind of George Galloway and Owen Jones. It's very small of mind. Tive used to call such people mental midgets. The mental midgetsy of Seattle is what allowed them to get away with covering for mass murder. By saying, I imagined, I believed that I was kidnapped and tortured as a child. That's what I want to talk to you about today. The letters made no secret of how horrific I was brutalized. We moved to get away from them. There was records a mile long. If the Pittsburgh Penguins Detective Services had wanted to do something other than cover up what happened, if they had wanted to find out what happened, God forbid, or verify what happened, it would have been very easy for them to find the evidence. I had gone to the office, gone to the police, tried to get help from my neighbors. They would have followed around this idea that I was a crybaby. What was he crying about, they might have asked. Oh, he was crying about being molested and tortured. Well, that's apparently what they're defending as a provincial norm. Now, Gail Burson said, now what I wonder is, did they really do this to somebody years ago? So what we see is the theory of wartime action at work. Somebody, I'd like to source it. I should probably try to source it. I probably should have tried to source it before I made this video, but somebody said something that's become something of an aphorism. History is written by the winners. So if history can be rewritten by the losers, they become the winners. So that's why all of these losers keep trying to rewrite things. All these losers from Seattle keep trying to rewrite the record of what happened so they can be winners. And that's how Hitler took his revenge. If you look at the index system, you see there was a kid named Gellermini, and I went to Fulton School. Well, Fulton Mini was Triple X Theater downtown next to the Fulton. There was a Fulton Mini. So it was organized crime. They had Gellermini and Fulton. Gellermini used to talk about a special substance that they could detect if you pulled a fire alarm. It would get on your hands and they could shine a light on you. So if Wadmaker forces a nerve agent on you and nearly kills you, forcing you to swallow, it's your fault that you swallowed and they put a nerve agent on it. Jello is like, she talked about Jello pudding, but it's like napalm was in Jello. So the story, counter story, was at work. And the idea was for Yoko Ono to come and pretend to find the script and then change the story. She got Russell to say, no, yo, we're with Nava Edelstein. No, yo, Jimmy Curry isn't the victim. No, yo, Liz, whatever her name is from Rusted had braid of claim to have come from the area of the Terry Villa Pizza Shop and so forth. Yeah, so down where the little village of Fulton Mini snuff films was being put on with the help of George Romero. I mean, they knew they had a star. They just weren't going to pay me for my work and injuries. They tortured me. So you have story and counter story. Now, what this leads to is our understanding of how the word liberalism has changed. See, Owen Jones and his friends like to spin it that Reagan was a liberal. Oh, we didn't know that. What? Tell us some more. Tell us some more about Reagan's liberalism. Well, he didn't like it when Errol Sharon murdered Sabra and Chantilla. Are you sure he didn't like it? Did you ask Bork? Did you ask James Watts? Little Greta. Did your friend Arnold Schwarzenegger ask James Watts what he thought of the expanding pie theory of ecology? Tell us about Reagan's liberalism. Tax and spend militarism. Annihilating peasants in El Salvador. Give us more, give us more. Far more than Sabra and Chantilla he murdered in Nicaragua. Oh, Reagan was a liberal. Oh, why was Reagan a liberal? Because he tortured Jimmy Curry and manufactured smut memories for Yoko Ono to declare that she was the winner in the counter story. And Ringo Starr backed her up. And Oliver Stone came swimming in cash and blood They're going to be lining up like pigs at a trial with this counter story. And sure enough, Russell grunted to the trial. Liz, Mike Labnicki, Daryl Fleming, they come running. They come, whole country coming running. Common ground, grunting at the trial, money and blood and Oliver Stone, telling the liberal truth of Ringo Starr. What did they do? They gassed me horribly. They drove my mother in tears beyond tears. Anybody who loves American homespun families would have appreciated the idea of Jimmy and Nancy being friends for 65, 70 years. I can't even see my mother because of this clowniac Ringo Starr. And this is supposedly proof that Reagan was a liberal, that he empowered the party of Donald Trump, that he brought Nosferatu to power with the help of Abby Martin and Yoko Ono and Daryl Fleming and Liz and Mike Labnicki. And Sherman Alexie was a special witch at the blood money trial, grunting at the blood money trial of the counter story. And Seattle said, "Thou shalt never be heard on the subject of being kidnapped by the Pittmans," which, by the way, is like quarrymen. Yes, it is. And Martin Andelman knew that, and so did Cyril Wecht. The Pittmen never existed, Yoko Ono cried, because you laughed at Leslie's pussy and were like one of you were like the Huff and the Puff wolf. I'll blow your house in. And the three little pigs come running to rescue Leslie. Is that the truth of what happened? The letter says clearly, Leslie, you are a fucking bitch for suggesting I should have raped you. And that was the sum total of all coincidences surrounding Gail Burson that Thaw's Magna Cum Thaw is called a godsend. And they have Peter Shaw with Neva pornographic actresses extruding, that was their word, a comment like, yeah, sure, tied her up and porked her with a carrot, which was what? A memory of something that Dawn Ostro, Mark Mancini, and Terry Visco exposed me to when they were courting and acting for the Neva Corporation and parading at Climax One as undercover agents from the FBI in Reagan's special liberal intel program. So the people who released AIDS were more liberal than the people who are exterminating Gaza, even though they are one and the same people. It was more liberal to use AIDS on queers than it was to use bunker buster bombs on tents. It was more liberal. So we have the sandbaggers, Abby Martin, George Galloway, Sabi Sabs, Nora and Ali, and Norm Finkelstein, Noam Chomsky, to thank that bombs are being dropped on tents. So let's hip hip from the sandbaggers. Thank you, George Galloway. Thank you for getting Gaza exterminated. Thank you for your liberalism. Hip hip for Reagan. Hip hip for Reagan. Bring back the liberals. Bring back George Bush. Bring back the liberals. Bring back George Bush. Hip hip for Reagan.